So I guess I'll start by summarizing this week, and I think it was a relatively impactful week. We got the announcement about goblins, and that's gonna start very soon, and it's gonna be a 2-week period where you can sacrifice seekers that have a void background for amulets. We'll pin a tweet that will have more information about that. And then additionally, I saw an announcement today that Immersive, one of the Futureverse brands that is part of the roll-up, has completed a deal with MasterCard to provide real-time settlement via
Testing, 1 2 1 2.
Okay, so let's introduce Kelly. Kelly, tell us a bit about yourself and your role at the Futureverse and what you do over there.
Hi everyone. I'm the animation director, and I basically supervise or animate or facilitate animation for a variety of projects. I also got to direct the trailer, which was really cool and fun. And yeah, just been working on all the Buzzy animation that's been slowly rolling out, and some other really fun animations that are going to be coming up pretty soon.
Hey, testing. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we could hear you the whole time. It's an issue of if you can hear us.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Yes, I am live and alive from New Zealand at Futureverse headquarters. Glad to have you on, Kelly. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm in Los Angeles, on the other side of the world.
Nice. The other headquarters, I guess.
I'm in Philadelphia.
Very spread out.
Okay, so do you want to talk to us about the trailer that was so exciting and so well done that you headed?
Yeah, the trailer was actually a lot of fun. It was a highly ambitious project with so many characters and so many sets. But we were able to do a lot of cool things. Like one cool thing is all the characters are rendered in Maya and Arnold, and all the backgrounds were in Unreal. So then we had to comp them together. And I don't think many productions do stuff like that, but it was actually pretty cool. And then we were able to have like all the sets and backgrounds be these kind of like more immersive experiences that everybody's working on right now. So it was cool combining that stuff. And then it was really fun just playing around with cameras and a lot of color design, like all the neon flufflets and like a lot of those like really cute sort of colorful things were probably one of my favorite things to work on.
Which scene was your favorite?
I definitely think my favorite was the flufflets jumping into the water, and probably the car scene, and maybe like the mycelium mushroom scene.
There were a lot of good scenes.
All of them.
How long did it take from start to finish?
It took about, I want to say 3.5, 4 months. So it was probably like August through a little bit of the beginning, mid-December.
And how large was the team that was working on it? I guess it probably fluctuated through the different periods.
Yeah, there was about 10, 11 animators. There was about 4 or 5 lighters, 4 or 5 comp artists. There was a whole team of Unreal artists. So the Unreal team was probably their own, 5 to 8 people. We also had Ben Riker, which is our CG supervisor, doing a million amazing, spectacular things alongside. So yeah, I guess that's probably 30, 40 people coming on and off the project as different parts of it began and ended.
What's it like working with a team that big on this type of a project? How often do you meet with different people? How do you keep everyone on track? How does the actual process work for those that aren't from this industry?
This project is really cool because it was kind of like a global project. We had studios in Colombia, we had people in Vancouver, we had people in Mexico, we had people in Kazakhstan, we had people in Poland. So we had people all over time zones. And basically the best way to do it is dailies. So each department would basically like run a dailies. Like you kind of start out with layout and you get to see like the cameras and like rough what the characters are doing. And actually before that, it's more of like making all the characters and building the rigs. But like once that was done, we were able to go into layout. So we would have a lot of dailies, and that's the part where we tweak all the cameras, make a ton of adjustments so that by the time the animators start fully fleshing out their ideas, like the cameras are locked in, everything's ready to go. And then on the back end of this, we could also send these cameras to the Unreal artists in Mexico. And then they could start matching their sets to our cameras. Because like I mentioned, we did all the characters inside Maya and all of the backgrounds inside Unreal. So basically, when you like render both these things, when you put them on top of each other, they have to lay out perfectly on top of each other, which was kind of its own feat, but we figured out all the cameras and how to get those to work. And then from layout, it moves to animation. Animation spends about like 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the complexity of the shot. And then it moves into lighting, and then it moves into compositing. And then I was also helping with a lot of the editing, so I edited a bunch of the final pieces together. We also used a few render farms, because all the fur, which looks fantastic, was a lot of rendering power. So, and then put the music on it. I know Sarah spent a really good amount of time making this like very epic, like sounding track to it, and then just getting everybody else around the world to submit their voice for the narration. So that was kind of like the final last little pieces.
That was very cool.
Hey, just for those who might not know, and just want to point that I think it's awesome that we're such a global workforce, and pulling talent from all over the world, and I think that's really awesome how collaborative all that is. But just for those who might not know, what's the differences between Maya and Unreal and kind of how they fit together?
Yeah, so there's a lot of programs out there, but Maya is kind of the industry standard for animation. They have a really robust animation system, and they also have this render engine called Arnold, and a lot of feature films like Paddington Bear and things with fur have been rendered in Arnold. So it just makes things look awesome. And then Unreal Engine is also another sort of program, but Unreal Engine, I guess the difference would be sort of like inside Maya, you're making these curated little sets, like you're kind of like in a little theater company, and it's like if you were to make an entire forest, you would have to like basically plant all these little trees. And while Unreal Engine will basically make like an entire video game set for you, and it might not look as sharp. I know each side has different like pros and cons. Like Unreal Engine does pretty good with a few like renderings of like outdoor areas and wilderness and things like that, but they're not super strong on rendering fur, while like Arnold is very strong on rendering fur. So it's just different programs that have like different strengths. And like the really cool thing about all these programs is you can use each one for whatever you need. I know the company uses Blender a lot because Blender is pretty quick with making like 10,000 of these characters. So it's kind of just what program and a lot of the strengths that each program has, and what like each company that makes these programs has like developed. But a lot of animation is basically done in Maya, unless a studio has proprietary software. Like DreamWorks has proprietary software, Pixar has proprietary software, but almost everybody else is using Maya, and it's owned by Autodesk.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to know. I actually didn't know they were owned by Autodesk. I'm not as much across the animation end of things, but it's cool to learn more about it and kind of see how it all works together. I actually I went yesterday to the Weta experience, and they basically had it's like the Weta experience Unleashed. It's in Auckland, and it's basically like 3 not released movies, but that have been like completely scripted, and you can like interact with the different like suits and different props and costumes and all that sort of stuff in a very like interactive way. So I thought that was a cool way that they kind of allowed people to interact with the experience, not so much like the animations themselves, but there's a bit of that, you know, on different screens and stuff like that. But just thought it was insane what Weta is really capable of and how deep that goes. But be interested to see if they come out with those movies or not. And I think they did this because you can't really go to like the Lord of the Rings one. You can't like take any videos or like touch things or anything like that. It's like kind of closed off. But I thought this was a really cool way for them to, you know, show their fans, you know, how they work and stuff. So I thought that was neat and just really interesting what Weta is capable of.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like cool technology that's like pushing things forward. But I feel like the way I like to describe it is like, you know, when you look at like Blizzard cinematic versus the actual gameplay, like there's a reason why the cinematic is like, you know, 1 minute long and it looks insanely beautiful. It's like, you know, like all that stuff is like a lot of it's rendered in Maya and some of these softwares to just make it all super tweaked. But if they were to make a video game that looked like that all the time, it would be like very difficult. And technology is getting there. It's definitely getting there and it's looking nicer in some spots. But, you know, like we could all tell the difference between, kind of like the gameplay stuff versus like the high-end cinematic things.
Yeah, definitely.
So I peeped your LinkedIn, Kelly, and you've worked for some very big companies, including DreamWorks. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what has been your experience at one of those big companies versus a startup like Futureverse. How's the work environment different, and how is the day-to-day different?
I think both companies are pretty different. Because at DreamWorks, I was a supervisor on a TV show called All Hail King Julian, and that was very cool. But it's also a very rigorous process to make a lot of episodes very quickly. But at the same time, it was also similar, where we had a lot of outside vendors and working with people all over the world to sort of accomplish these deadlines. Non-fungible labs and like now Futureverse is a little bit smaller, but I think you're like allowed to have more creativity. It's kind of like, you know, at DreamWorks, it would be like a while for me to direct anything. And here it was like, okay, like you're already directing, you're making all these decisions, like go for it with the trailer. And they trusted me and it came out really awesome. But like, that's not something that would happen very easily in a big company. So it is pretty cool to have a little bit more input and a little bit more creativity in a smaller company.
How did you come to work at Non-Fungible Labs and or Futureverse?
I actually met Dylan, who's one of the creators of Party Bears, and he was looking for an animator at the beginning of last year. And on Zerply, it's like a website where animators can just post that they're available and companies can go search for them. I highly recommend it. Gotten a lot of jobs from there. And we just started talking, and I basically told Dylan that, you know, I'm an animator, but I have a lot more ideas. Like I like directing, I like story writing. I'm just like pretty interested in like overall character development. And we just kind of hit it off, and like he was like, all right, like maybe you're a little bit like overqualified for just this basic animation role, so maybe we can do something bigger. And when basically Party Bears merged together with FLUF, I think Dylan was like a big proponent of like trying to getting me in through the door and being like, we should hire her. She has all these things to offer. So that's how it happened.
That sounds pretty awesome. I think I speak on behalf of a lot of people that we're glad to have you. I mean, I don't work for the company or anything, so I don't know that I can say that.
Well, I'm kind of always a big proponent of like, you should really speak about the things you want, because you never know, you know, like just chatting with Dylan looked like a regular animation role, which I didn't think too much of it. And then he was like, actually, like, I have this other bigger opportunity that seems more aligned with all the things you just shared. And I don't think that would have ever happened if I didn't share it. So I'm always encouraging people to, you know, even if you do one thing and you're interested in something else, like, share it with your supervisors, share it with people around you, because you never know when they're going to be like, hey, you have an interest in this? Awesome. This is what we need. Are you ready? And then it's just kind of like arriving at these opportunities, and also like kind of working on like yourself and developing your skills so that when they come, you're kind of like, yes, I'm ready. Let's do it.
That's really good life advice for anybody, no matter what field they're in. Do you feel, because it's a Web3 centric company, that you're on like the cutting edge of future innovation, or does it just feel like a normal animation job? How does the Web3 component, I guess, make you feel about it?
It definitely doesn't feel like standard animation, where I feel like standard animation is just making these characters perform for a TV show or a film and then it ends. This is more like making like a lot of characters, like a very large amount of characters, and all of them having like very unique personalities, and they just kind of get to live on forever, which is like way cooler. While like everything else that I've ever worked on is like, okay, this is a commercial, it ends. This is a TV show, it ends. This is a film, it ends. While like this is just keeps on going, and there's even more ideas, and there's even more projects, and then all these characters come together in these really interesting ways, and it just feels like way more expansive. And like in a weird way, the characters feel a little bit more real because they don't, you know, like they're not just a file that goes nowhere. While like most projects, like, you know, the project ends and the files go into an archive somewhere and that's it.
In this scenario, people own the files.
Yeah.
That's weird, right?
Yeah, and they can do all sorts of stuff. Like, I know all the animation challenges and different things people have come up with have been really cool. So it's fun to see that stuff.
At this point, I want to invite our audience, if anyone has a question for Kelly or a comment, please jump on the stage. Sam, did you have anything you wanted to ask? You can ask your standard question.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the point of just being able to, you know, reach out to really anybody in the company and just kind of getting empowered by people. And, you know, like you were talking about, kind of talking to people about what you're interested in, and just like the ability to really, you know, level up and get involved with what you're most passionate about, I think is a big thing within what I've seen and experienced here. You know, I think from my experience, I've definitely felt empowered by, you know, my peers, and they've really allowed me to, you know, do what I want to do and I'm passionate about, and, you know, given me a path to get there. So just want to say that that's a really great thing about, you know, Futureverse and what we've got going on. And on like the tech stack end of things, I know Pablo and Valle had a sort of like live stream the other week, I think it was last week. They were going through like Metashoot and kind of showing like Buzzies in Metashoot at some of the parts, and just different assets in that application. Was curious, you know, what you might know about Metashoot, and just kind of maybe an explainer as to what that is, because I thought it was super cool seeing the Buzzies in that kind of environment, and how they were able to be manipulated and tossed around and whatnot. It was like super high quality.
Yeah, I think what Valle created is pretty cool. I think he spent like the last 10 years developing this. But basically, I think like I haven't super played around with it, but I think the big idea is that instead of going into Unreal Engine and basically creating like a studio environment where you bring in some lights, you bring in ground, shadows, all these sorts of things that could probably take a person like kind of a while to set up. And you might also need a little bit of experience. Using his plugin, you basically get all of these tools like already made for you, which is like, it's like if you were to basically go to a set in Los Angeles and you're like, hey, I'm trying to sell these book bags, like, and I need this awesome photographs and video of it. And somebody was like, great, press this plugin, and you get like a person on set, somebody that does all these amazing things for you, sets it up, and you just hit play and like it records all these amazing things. Like that's what Vaya has kind of created inside the plugin. So I think it's really cool that he was like able to develop that and like share that with everybody. He's kind of a genius.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I thought it was a really cool tool, and just kind of watching what all could be done with it. And it really seemed pretty straightforward. I mean, it seemed like somebody could, pick it up and kind of manipulate it pretty easily and kind of, get some different scenes and angles and whatnot.
Yeah, and like it's just a lot easier than like having to manually build all those things yourself and know like a lot of technical aspects, not only of like Unreal, but of like lighting and where to put all your lights so it comes like correctly. It's like basically you have a bunch of like professional lighters inside the computer working for you, making decisions, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, super powerful tool. I thought that was really awesome seeing that. And I think that's, one of the big things about content creation and just enabling people to build things is like making programs and platforms and, infrastructure that allows them to do that easily without, some massive learning curve and, a lot of information they need to get started and all that stuff. So, I definitely think we'll see more of those tools sort of popping up and being unleashed to the community over time. Looks like we've got Shay up here. How you doing?
Hi, friends. Doing fantastic. How about you? It's been a while since I've popped up here.
Hey.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Yeah. Thank you. I had a quick question for Kelly.
Yeah.
One, I love your story, and I loved the trailer. I was so obsessed with the trailer. I feel like it evoked so many different emotions, and it was such a cool just sort of launch for Futureverse. So fantastic work on that. And as like another professional in the space, it's really cool seeing a woman and a person of color at the forefront leading these sorts of things. So I just kind of wanted to give you a shout out for that, and also ask you, I guess this could sound like a bit of an ethereal question, but I looked at, I took a quick peek at your website, and, it said you were like Venezuelan born and stuff, which I think is really cool. And it seems like you are somebody that, comes from like a diverse background. And so how do you feel like your diversity and kind of your experiences in terms of like your roots and where you come from give you an edge in your perspective? For me, as a woman and a person of color, I feel like it definitely gives me an edge in the space, and in general, in terms of like just perspective I bring to the table. And so how do you feel like it's like helped you kind of get to where you are, and how does it just sort of help like shape your perspective in this space?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think we're like coming into like this new sort of time, although I've always felt like literally the only woman in the space ever. So I feel like we still have like a lot of work to do to get more equality going everywhere. But I think there is something to be said about the fact that a lot of not very diverse groups of people have been able to participate in making films, games, to the point that, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but a lot of stories are about a young white boy going on an adventure. And it's because white male directors are getting to tell their stories and writers over and over again. And I think now we're just coming into this like other world where other people are getting to tell their stories. And I think like games and television and all this Web3 can always be infinitely more creative if everybody's allowed to participate and share their ideas, because we have kind of been like bombarded with just the same narratives and the same people telling the same stories, and it's like the same people from the same upbringings being allowed to tell the same stories. Then we've just been watching the same thing for like a really long time, and it is kind of important to let other people in and like share different things, because everybody just has so many different worldviews. You know, I'm from Venezuela. I grew up in Miami. I've lived in a lot of places in the US, and my experiences are like completely different from everybody else's. And I do think that I get to bring these different things that feel important to me, and I can just see it everywhere, you know, like it's kind of like even in the trailer. I think if I wasn't directing the trailer, we wouldn't have like a neon flufflet, you know? Like I'm a big, like I have another art page. It's just called Find It Inside. And I do these big murals and all the colors are neon and they're bright and they're super fun. And stuff like that just gets shot down, you know? Like in a lot of professional spaces, everybody wants primary colors, royal blue. You know, it's like the leading color and everything. So we kind of are just like stuck in these like Starbucks neutral green forest or Apple plain white with blue. And if you really look at these from like this big point of view, it's like a very stale creative environment. So I think, you know, letting other people in and participating does play into that. Like Latin culture is very colorful, very, very vibrant. And I've always liked a lot of bright colors, and I've never understood why things aren't bright, you know? So I think all these things like are good for creativity and are good for just better ideas and people all over the world feeling like they matter and their stories are valid, and like, you know, having little kids be like, well, she's doing it, like I can do it, you know? I think it is kind of like a very strange feeling if like maybe, you know, you're like a 10-year-old girl and you're like, I want to direct a film. And then you look at that, like there's like 2%, something very low of female directors. So you're like, okay, well, this is not very encouraging. So it's kind of like the more women and people of diversity can be included in these bigger spaces and these bigger conversations, I think it'll add a lot of like just richer stories and people feeling represented, and then more people that like, you know, they never thought that their ideas mattered would speak up and share their ideas, and then we could have cooler and cooler stories. So
yeah, that's a beautiful answer. Thanks. I think it speaks to why diversity in things like, you know, diversity in color and gender and all those things ultimately also lead to like diversity in perspective and thought, and having those different voices in the room and different voices at the table and giving them decision-making power like has sort of like an umbrella and blanket effect across so many things. So that's really awesome. Thanks. Cheers.
Yeah, good question. Thanks.
Looks like we got Tybo on the stage. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, good. I wanted to ask about what are you most excited about, Kelly, about the future of Futureverse, and do you see yourself being more of a creative director based off this conversation we're having? I missed earlier, so I don't know if I'm repeating the question again.
Yeah, I feel like as things develop, it would be fun to do more creative direction. I feel like animation kind of goes hand in hand with that, because like as an animator, you have to think of like everything, what the character's feeling, what they're emoting, where they're coming from, why would they behave this way. So you're already kind of like pretty deeply immersed in the world as like you're living through it, and like how would you participate in it. So doing creative direction kind of falls like hand in hand, where it's like, yeah, this color is probably going to feel good, or maybe these ideas will feel like more exciting because these characters are like this, so this should be like this. And I think Futureverse has a lot of really cool, exciting projects that are coming up, and yeah, we'll just see like where they need me for different projects. It's kind of a fluid company, so every day is pretty exciting.
That sounds good for you then. So when you talk about like animation, does that come down to like the details of like the way that the facial expressions happen as well, or are you more focused on like the way that the body moves, or is it all just all encompassing?
It's pretty all encompassing. Like the way I like to explain a lot of animation to people is like if you imagine a Pinocchio doll, like there's kind of like a person that like draws it on a piece of paper and then they hand it off to another person, and that person carves the wood out and they hand it off to another person, and that person paints the wood and they hand it off to another person, and then somebody puts strings on it and then they hand it off, and then finally that's animation. And animation is everything. Yeah, it's literally like the corners of the mouth, the tips of the eyebrows, the pinkies, the knees, the toes. And as humans and like anything, like we kind of like communicate like 80% with nonverbal communication. And there's some like pretty easy examples, right? If somebody's standing in front of you with their arms closed, they're probably like not very open and receptive. Something is going on. So, you know, if somebody has their shoulders slumped down, they're probably not feeling that great. You know, and that goes for everything. There's like a million micro expressions on our face. Like humans are insanely good at reading even the tiniest changes in somebody's face. That's why you can look at somebody and, you know, they'll be like, "Are you okay?" And they say, "Yeah." And you're like, "I don't think so." And like, how could you even know that about them, right? You're just like literally looking at them, and somehow you can infer that maybe something is going on with them, like they're just not okay. Or you say something and then their face even changes a tiny bit, and you can like, you know, even the slightest little eyebrow change can give you like a whole completely different meaning. And like that's what we do as animators. Like we literally are making all those little things be so exact to create this like final feeling and performance, so that when you watch it, you know, you're kind of like, wow, it looks like they're having like a good time. Like that character looks sad, that character looks happy, that character looks concerned. So it's a lot of tedious details, but it's cool in the end.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if this was asked earlier, but when did you like make the moment to decide that you wanted to be an animator? Was there like an aha moment, or did it just slowly happen over time?
I took a very boring architecture class in high school, and we had to draw all these like straight lines, and it was literally a drafting class, and I was like, I hate drawing straight lines. This is like so boring. Like, but they had a program called 3D Viz on the computer, and I remember asking my teacher what it was, and he didn't know. It was a public school in Florida, but he had a book, and he's like, if you want, follow this book. So I followed the tutorials on the book, and I was able to make a lot of basic like CG stuff. Like I made a wine glass and I made a sofa just following along the book, and it was all in like 3D. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. Like I want to do 3D animation. And I didn't know specifically at that time I wanted to specialize in animation, because as I mentioned before, like there's disciplines for everything. Like somebody draws it, you know, somebody carves the wood, somebody puts on the strings. Like these are all specific career paths you can take, and certain people gravitate towards things like modelers, like just making the characters and basically carving the wood. They don't really care about like the performance or the acting or the tiny change of the eyebrow. And like when I like got more in, when I tried all these different disciplines, which I like understand all of them pretty well, the one that I liked the most was animation. And I just grew up watching a lot of cartoons, and I always liked the cartoon world, and I loved how wacky everything was and how you can do all these crazy things. So it just seemed kind of like natural, intuitive for me to be like, this is what I want to do. I want to make these characters move and like make them do things that like they probably couldn't do in real life, but I can make this up.
Awesome. So if there was any like some of your favorite work that you've done in the past, what would you recommend to the audience to look at besides the Futureverse trailer?
I've done some fun stuff. I got to work with little Michaela. I animated a bunch of her music videos, and she was like the Instagram influencer, which was like, she was like hyper real, but I got to make her rap to one of the Rosalia songs, which I'm a huge like fan of Rosalia, so it was really cool doing that. And it's just been fun working on like all sorts of stuff. I've gotten to work with the Energizer Bunny, which isn't very exciting because he just walks across the screen all the time. But and just touching like all sorts of different characters for different projects has been fun. I think they've all been different. I don't think one has been more like cooler than all of them. I still think it's like pretty fun and insane that you just like sit there with a file for like weeks, and then at some point 2 weeks later you press play and it looks like it's just alive and breathing and just moving about. So yeah, I guess I've liked all my projects. I don't think there's one that I think would be
I love the Smurf from your reel. I thought they were cute.
The Smurfs?
Yeah,
the Smurfs were a lot of fun. Honestly, anytime like any company like allows me to be like more wacky and weird with the animation, it's always like a blast. Like having to do like hyper real animation is like okay and it's fun and it's cool, but I don't know, I feel like there's already a lot of humans walking around. We can record them with cameras, so to make like an exact copy, like I feel like animation should always kind of be fun and defy things that we can't do in this real world, you know? So every time I can be like a little wackier with it, I think I enjoy myself most.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Totally. With the Futureverse trailer, how long did that take to work on? Because it seems like there's a lot to it.
Yeah, it took us about 4 months. It was about like August to December. So it was like 4 months, and there was a lot of people, and yeah, like it's kind of what we're saying earlier, people just like all over the world working on it. And I think that's what's so cool about all these like computers and different softwares like Maya and Unreal, that like, you know, just because somebody lives in Kazakhstan doesn't mean they can't participate in this. Like we had a bunch of animators in Kazakhstan, so they just had to open up their Maya, load the file, start animating, sending it back. We had animators in Colombia, we had animators in Vancouver, and all of these people would never sit in a room together. But they, you know, they learned the software, they took some classes, they practiced on their skills, and now they get to work on these cool projects. So I think that's pretty awesome.
No, that sounds really cool that you can just connect with anyone in the world and just build a creative project. It's just like, I guess that's what's happening. Like the internet's just become more immersive and we're more connected than ever before. So it's always cool to hear it. Like you don't think about like, oh, you know, there's people all over the world working on this one project. But then as we become more digital nomads, it seems to make sense that that's what's happening. That's all the questions I have. But thank you for sharing, and I appreciate all the insights.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks. Next up, we have Mo Meta Music and then Drop Bear Dad.
Hey there, guys. And thanks for your time, Kelly. I found it really insightful, a lot of the stuff we're learning here today. I was just curious about the integration we're going to have ourselves when we start creating using the thingies. And you said you've done some stuff with the buzzies. So when it comes time for us to start creating in that real world environment, are you playing any part in that? And any idea of like what that experience will be like for us?
I don't think I could share any of that information just yet. Whatever's public is what's out there. Other than that, I don't think I can talk about
Kelly,
it.
Honestly, I wouldn't ask you any questions if I didn't think you could share them.
But I mean, it will be cool. You know, I feel like one thing that like I'm always striving for is like, you know, like every character is going to feel different and unique and like according to its own family. So when you're like interacting with all of these things, it's not just going to feel like a copied animation or something that's like boring. Like I feel like all of it's going to be really cool and different, and it's going to be like little surprises here and there that hopefully make everybody have like this moment of like, that was so cute, or that was so weird, or oh my god, what was that? Like as you're kind of like interacting with all these characters.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. I realize you can't really answer that question. I respect that. But at the same time, the sort of technology that you're using, is this brand new, or have you used this technology before, the stuff that we're going to be interacting with?
It's all going to be pretty new because it's kind of like a lot of people using a lot of these characters for different things. So I think they're developing a lot of like new, really cool things. Like I said, this is like completely different than like, you know, making a TV show or even like a video game, because it's just a lot of people that own these files. It's like something that doesn't really exist.
Thank you. I appreciate the answers, Kelly. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Cool.
Let's hear from
Thanks,
Drop
Meta.
Bear, who has been creating quite a lot of animation himself.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hey, Kelly, it's actually really great to hear your story and how you came on and everything you've just talked about. I look through the list of people that are listening right now, and I see a bunch of us that have been creating content for Futureverse stuff, plus a few other projects. And I know just by talking to these guys that we're not university, college trained in it, but we've sort of found a passion for doing this. I mean, we currently have a Seekers open on my computer doing Unreal environment right now for the last week of that. Do you think there's going to be more opportunities for community content creation moving forward?
I think so. And I think that's what's so cool about like the internet and computers. Like you can download all these programs for free. You can download Unreal, you can get a student version of Maya. There's a ton of YouTube videos on everything you could imagine. And it's like, I'm sure everybody that's played with all this stuff, it's fun. It's really, really fun to like open these tutorials and go through, and kind of like my experience in like high school where I made a sofa in CG and I was like, this is the coolest sofa I've ever made. So it's like, you know, everybody else joining and like watching videos and trying to learn these programs, I think will keep growing their skills and come up with new fun things. And, you know, I know the company is like super open to hearing about people doing different projects and sharing them with us, and bringing on different artists for different projects. Like even if you're at a junior level, you know, there might be something where we can bring you on for a small project and you might not have like a main character or something like that, but you can work on some other smaller things and get a little bit more experience and like slowly build up your like skills and your portfolio. But it's completely doable. Like it's not out of reach by any means.
No, that's great. Yeah, I've got to say, I've definitely found a passion for it. And yeah, like you said, YouTube is a go-to. It's absolutely brilliant. And really, anyone can start doing this. I see Stax' little picture there. He's helped out in the community a whole lot. And well, not regularly, but we have often jumped in and just started sharing our screen while we're doing these animations, and people jump in and out and ask questions as we go. And, you know, I think it's really great. I've never seen anything like this in my life, sort of how Web3 is bringing all these people in, I guess, making people more passionate about certain things in life. So, it's really rad.
Yeah, I feel like learning new things is actually like a weird, fun hobby. It's like school, but like not boring. It's more fun.
Thank you.
It's like a fun school.
Yeah,
just on
it's
that point,
creative.
I think. Yeah, for sure. Just on the point of like community creation, I think, and like just the fact that we're so global as a community as well. I think it's really cool seeing all the different perspectives and, you know, opinions of others, and, you know, everybody has a different story where we all came from and all that, and different skills that we can all kind of bring together and, you know, build things and show each other new skills. And I think that really says a lot about, you know, how our community kind of works and how we can build new things together. But I definitely think that Futureverse is taking actively the approach of, you know, enabling community content creation and, you know, just empowering people to, you know, do that. And it'll be interesting seeing all the different tools and things that come out along those lines, just overall.
Is Seeker still having their 3D competition, Sam, or did that close?
Yes, it ends at the end of this month, so wrapping it up, I guess, in the next week, huh? But yeah, been incredible seeing a bunch of those submissions. Really enjoyed that, and we'll have to get together in the office and make a vote here sometime soon. So looking forward to that.
Well, yeah, that could be, it's open for another week, so that could be another opportunity for some people maybe to submit stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. I'll make sure to pin that to the top as well in case anybody hasn't checked it out yet. If you are just getting started, make sure you get after it because you've only got a week basically. And maybe you can put together a short clip, or I know a lot of people have been working on a lot of animations the past month or two, and really seen some awesome submissions, even like short clips, longer ones, and yeah, just all across the board, really creative stuff coming out of the community.
I feel like it's about time that we should let Kelly go. We've gotten a great conversation and great insight today. Kelly, is there anything you wanted to cover that we haven't covered yet?
No, I think that was about it. And like I said earlier, I encourage everybody to like take more classes, sign up for things, learn, develop your skills. Like all this stuff is really fun, and there's going to be so many opportunities coming up. So nothing you learn is going to be wasted. And yeah, I think everybody wants to see everybody's creative ideas out there. So don't think that whatever you're making sucks. Everything just requires a little bit of time and skills and patience, but like, yeah, like just keep going and really like believe in yourself and keep practicing and taking classes. Like it does go a really long way.
Yeah, it's definitely a process, a lot of iterating to get it done. So good point.
It was really great to have you, Kelly. This was a great and very informative and meaningful conversation. Pufferfish, did you want to ask her a question before she leaves, or did you come for the top 5?
No, I did want to tell her that I appreciate her because, Futureverse has a really big team and we only hear from like the same 5 or 6 people all the time. So like, it's cool to have someone on the content creation side being vocal. So I really appreciate that. I love the buzzies and everything I've seen so far. Oh, excuse me. Everything we've seen so far is amazing.
Awesome. I'm glad you like it. We love it too. So it's cool. And hopefully maybe more people will come on here and chat about what they do. So you get to see more than 5 people in the company.
You should tell some of your coworkers that this is a good show to come on.
I will see who else. Yeah, I'll see who else wants to come on and chat because we do have a pretty large amount of people working on stuff. So, and I'm sure they would be down to talk about like what they specialize in.
Yes, we're nice and we don't bite over here. So, highly encouraged for people to come on our show. Thanks so much for doing that.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks.
Have a good one. Appreciate you coming on.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Pufferfish, did you want to hit us with the top 5 or is that
sounds like a good time for some comic relief intermission?
Let's do it.
I just want to say good evening, everybody. This week's top 5 list is sponsored by OpenSea.io. OpenSea, for the love of God, please come back. We are begging you. This week's top 5 list is the top 5 things NFT traders regret saying on Valentine's Day. We have love in the air. Hope you all had a very pleasant Valentine's Day. I hope you didn't say anything like this out loud. These are the top 5 things NFT traders regret saying on Valentine's Day. Number 5, babe, the roses are an NFT. It's better than real ones. Number 4, can we have sex later? Blur claim is about to begin. Number 3, babe, there's a 90-minute delay on the Blur claim. Come back and get naked. Number 2, I promised I wasn't buying NFTs. I was taking a poop. Why are you showing me your phone? Is that Ether scam? Uh-oh. And the number 1 thing crypto traders regret saying on Valentine's Day. I made our wedding photo into a Bitcoin ordinal. Wait a minute. Oh, that's my trolley. Hold on a second. I gotta pay this guy. Give me 1 second.
And now a quick word from our sponsors that make the show possible. Are you building something cool in Web3? And would you like to get in front of the eyes and minds in one of the most engaged and loyal communities around, the FLUFL? Well, hit me up on my Twitter DMs, as the channel is now seeking its first round of official sponsors. Alternatively, you can support my Patreon, or you can buy me a coffee. Oh shit. But if your liquidity is also run dry, fear not, because there's some things you can do for free, and it all makes a difference. You can hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, and share this with your friends. I'd really appreciate it, and it helps support the channel. So with all that out of the way, let's get back to the show.
That was great. Thanks for the comedic relief, Puffer.
By the way,
I
Puffer,
also hope you did.
do you have a discount code for OpenSea, or did they lower their prices or fees or something? Is there a way to save money on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you use my affiliate link, you just use type in pufferfish.eth when you check out. I think they're going to lower the royalties on creator fees. But I really don't know what OpenSea is going to do here. It's interesting. I think we're going to see some kind of like pseudo legal airdrop or something, or maybe one of those things like you have to click, I am not a US person. I'm not sure what OpenSea is going to do here. It seems like they're breaching many contracts. That might be a story for another Spaces. That's just my observation.
Yeah, I don't know if on the token drop into things, if they would be able to do it kind of like Blur did. I mean, I know with Blur you had to like you couldn't technically be in the US and do it, but obviously there were ways around that. But I'd be interested
That's why
to
you're
see
in New
what kind of no. I think it'd be interesting to see how they handle that. And like, I know OpenSea is based in the US. I'm pretty sure they're headquartered in New York. So it'd be interesting to see how they handle that and if they will have a token or not. And, you know, just really interested to see how regulation plays out in terms of airdrops, staking, that sort of stuff. Because I know there's been a lot of conversation around that recently. But, you know, hoping for the best for innovation's sake. And I think we'll push through either way, no matter what the outcomes. And, you know, I think it'll all work out for the better. But definitely a lot going on that end of things. Also just want to touch on the big announcement today from Immersive and Futureverse, partnered with MasterCard. That was a really big announcement, so cool to see that coming through, and definitely a lot of good things to come from that in terms of removing friction points and just kind of making things more accessible for people to get involved with. So big stuff there. Anybody have any thoughts or questions around that? Feel free to join in.
Maybe we could get Jerome to come on our Spaces one of the next few weeks to hear more about the MasterCard I guess partnership. I don't know if that's the right word, or
Yeah.
whatever the
Yeah,
arrangement
sure.
is.
I'll see him tomorrow actually at this little event. So
Oh, how convenient is that?
how convenient. Yeah, I'll give him a shout.
What?
Also wanted to get on Valle and maybe really anybody that's open to it. So if anybody has any suggestions or anybody they would like to hear from, or a department in general, I can work to get a hold of somebody and hopefully get them on the show. So always open to suggestions, and always want to make sure we're, you know, getting on guests that everybody wants to hear from and talking about topics that people are interested in. And yeah, just think it's important to kind of bridge that gap for everybody and give people a platform to kind of talk about what they've been up to and kind of show that to us. So always open to that.
Sam, have you shared anything about your trip to New Zealand? I missed the first couple minutes, but I'm curious what, you know, your impressions on the FLUF motherland. Have you seen any interesting animals, or like orcs or elves or anything? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed, I mean, first and foremost, just like grateful for the opportunity to get out here, and shout out to the Silo team and Futureverse for, you know, getting me out here and putting me up. You know, just eternally grateful and blessed with that. Yeah, man, I just pretty surreal just getting out here. I've really enjoyed the city, and it really feels like kind of tropical, and there's a lot of greenery around, and I would say, biggest thing is really just getting to meet more of my team and more people that I work with every day, and those that I don't work with as much as well. Like, just really meeting people face to face is really important, and I've really enjoyed getting to know people better, and just putting a face to the name. The offices are awesome. Really enjoyed what they've got to offer here, and went to the Weta experience that I mentioned earlier yesterday, and that was insane. Just kind of seeing like the creative process of how these different films are built and what all goes into it, and just like touching and seeing and feeling different experiences around what Weta is capable of. So I think that was really powerful, seeing that. Been here for, I guess, 2 days now. And just kind of getting as much as I can done as well in terms of work and working with the team. We got Goblin Sacrifice and Seeker Sacrifice rather tomorrow, so big event coming up. I think Shara and Marco are in town as well, so I got to meet Marco. That was awesome. Also met Ben for the first time, who's our CEO, and Dorian, and those are a couple of our co-founders at Silo. Will picked me up from the airport. That was really nice of him to offer that and pick us up, and shout out to Will for that. Man, just really enjoying it. I didn't come in with like too much expectation. I try to just let it come and enjoy it, but it has blown me away for sure. I could definitely see myself coming back, and I'll be here for a month, so if anybody's out here in New Zealand, feel free to hit me up. I'll be in Auckland most of the time, and Queenstown next week from Sunday to Thursday. So if anybody's in the surrounding areas, feel free to let me know, and I'll try to meet up with you. But just really grateful to be here, and really, really awesome getting to meet the team.
Yeah, it's cool. A month. I didn't know that, man. You're always traveling. That's one of the awesome things about Web3. That Web2 world does not get to enjoy the things like that.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you, Son. I just want to say that I think your journey the past year, I know last year when we met, we were pursuing positions together in the space, and it's just so crazy how much things change in a year. And like, I think, the FLUFL has brought so many of us together and like formed so many friendships, and you being consistent with Down the Rabbit Hole and all your hard work that you've put into Silo, like you really deserve to be out there, and I'm super proud of everything that you're doing, friend.
Well, I really appreciate it, and likewise, I'm proud of you as well. I think everybody's trying to do great things and just make the most of what we got, and I think it's important to be consistent about these kind of spaces and pulling together guests and things like that, so that everybody can engage and learn and hear from people that we haven't before. And just providing value wherever I can and try my best. But I really appreciate the kind words. Much love. Looking forward to much more for sure. Going to be a long journey.
All right, when's the next Buzzies reveal? That's what we really want to know.
When reveal?
I don't have those answers for you, but at least I can't give them. So, but looking forward to that as well. That'll be really awesome.
And that's when, WEN. Okay.
When egg head. Man, Auckland's a cool place. I'm excited to get to Queenstown too. Glad to get kind of a taste of both the North and South Island. So very grateful for that. Also, shout out to Kiwiana and her husband Blair for allowing me to stay with them in Queenstown. Really generous of them, and really looking forward to hanging out with them. Gonna go to Milford Sound and maybe Wanaka and a couple other places, see the sights and sounds and all that. So really grateful for that. And again, if anybody's around Queenstown or Auckland, give me a shout. Happy to meet up with you.
Have you recovered from your 15-hour flight and your jet lag?
Man, honestly, Yeah, I wouldn't say I didn't have a lot of issues really. I didn't sleep much on the plane, but like I think I left at like 10 something p.m., like 10:30, and got in at like 8 a.m. So it was kind of like, I don't know, it wasn't weird. It was just a long ass flight and it was very uncomfortable. But yeah, just getting up every hour and a half or so and stretching my legs, walking around. That was how I made it through. Watched a few movies, but I'd rather do that than stop in LA or something and have a longer flight. Just direct flight to Auckland from Dallas and get on out there.
Oh yeah, totally. I'd rather just get it over with too.
Yeah, but word to the wise, if you're gonna do it, try to leave at night and then you get in the morning, so it kind of feels like you just kind of had a long night. I think that worked out pretty well. But going back is gonna suck. That's not what I'm looking forward to. You basically leave whatever day you end up leaving, and you get back like, you leave at 1 p.m. and you get back the same day at like 8 a.m. So that's what's going to be rough, I think. But, hop through the portal. We'll be all right. Yeah, just trying to I got some good sleep last night. That was good. Got to sleep at like 10 p.m. or so. But yeah, really awesome meeting the team, and everybody's super friendly and welcoming, and you can grab some time of anybody in the company, no matter what their level is or anything like that, and everybody's open to conversations and just engaging. So I think that's a really important part of it. Something you don't find much in Web 2 as much, typically at least, especially at like a very large corporate level. You might at startups and stuff, but I think once a company gets to a certain size, it can be kind of tough to have that level of personal connection and availability, I guess, to some of those higher up people. So yeah, just really grateful for the opportunity and looking forward to the future.
The Futureverse is bright.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we got the Root Network launching here soon, with Gods and Goblins, and getting those on Root. That's going to be amazing. Even though I hate the goblins, they are quite quality, and yeah, I just think it's a great event we've got coming up here soon. And the bestowing after that.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I don't actually have a final decision on what to do with my Seekers yet. Some are going in the fire. I'm completely undecided at this point what to do.
Should we talk about the benefits, the pros and cons of the either side of the decision matrix?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I was reading something.
We should discuss the pros and cons of either side of the decision matrix.
Yeah, we should.
So,
go ahead.
Should I list some pros and then someone else list some? You list the cons because you're Team Seekers.
Yeah, for sure.
So the pros are you get an amulet. Now, what are the pros of getting an amulet? So an amulet comes with some type of voting rights over like what NFT collections can be burned for something called junk. I'm not sure if that's in ERC20 or well, it's probably not in ERC20. I'm not sure if it's some kind of token on the Root network or some type of game, like off-chain token, potentially, that you then use to generate goblins. Tybo, can you fact check that? There was a YouTube that had more information about this that I didn't listen to, or I listened to a few minutes of and got the notes.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and pin that. Don't know if I can say what type of token it is, I guess.
Right.
But it will be a token that you can burn. Well, you can spin to get goblins.
And another concept that I should have covered is that there's going to be a lot of goblins. It's not like a 10K collection, but rather they can continuously pump out goblins using the dot technology that they came up with, so that each goblin, is like genetically different from each other, and like there's not really a limit on how many goblins can be made, or else if there is a limit, the limit is potentially like ever expanding and very large, so that there could be maybe millions of people one day with goblins potentially, or at least a lot more than 10,000.
Yeah, you could kind of think of it as like an open edition in a way. It'll be very awesome. Even though I hate the goblins, I think they're very, very high quality, and I'm good friends with Kyle, who is project managing all things Gods and Goblins, and yeah, definitely a lot of potential and creative, amazing things coming out of that team. Some of the cons of sacrificing your seekers would be, obviously, you don't want to. You might not want to sacrifice.
You lose the
all,
seeker.
Up to you. Yeah, you lose your seeker. That's the biggest thing. We've got a lot of awesome events coming up with part swapping and nodes for the incentivized node network that people can participate in and support the network for decentralized communications, which I think is a really massive thing. So excited to get those things out. We've got our node dashboard coming out that will kind of accompany the incentivized node network, and that will be kind of our hub of interaction for all things seekers, which will be really cool. So, don't sacrifice things that you think are rare, or that, not financial advice, obviously. This is totally up to you what you want to do, but rarity does not impact what you get. So it's a quantity thing. So, if you have a part down the line that you think you'd want to swap out or something, just consider what your options are and, take things into account. But yeah, just quantity over quality in terms of what you do sacrifice if you do choose to. Can't really speak on the end of our things, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I'm excited.
Oh, and are there anything else Amulets can do other than get junk and create goblins? I think and vote on what collections can be burned for junk. I think there's potentially like an open-ended other benefits.
Yeah, there could be some in-game benefits, maybe some token-gated mints and those sort of things. The team's always exploring different ways to benefit different holders and in different ways. So I think it's safe to say that they'll definitely take all these things into consideration and provide as many benefits as possible to the holders of those things. So,
well, not as many as
definitely
possible.
Some good stuff.
That's because you got to balance it between all types of directions that the team wants to push benefits. So I wouldn't say as many as possible, but definitely they'll want to reward them in some way, shape, or form.
Yep, for sure.
Another conversation to have is what's better, 5 of the basic amulets or 1 of like the middle amulet, or any other combination that you want to have a conversation about? Like, is it better to have large amounts of the base models or small amounts of the rare models of amulet? Does anyone have an opinion on that? I mean, I don't know that there's a correct answer on that. It's just a question to ponder.
Is my mic working?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. See, it says my mic's not on, so my phone's tripping on me. Yeah, so it says also, sorry to not answer your question, but it says we also get access to certain mints with the amulets, right? So I'm like, well, should I do 3 5s or 15 singles, right? But I have a thought in the back of my head. People who do the biggest sacrifice will either mint first or maybe those flying ships. I want one of those flying ships, and I feel like I have to do a 15 sacrifice to be able to mint it or something. That's in the back of my head somewhere.
It's possible. You never know.
How do I get one of these flying ships? I need one of them.
Those are pretty cool flying ships. I don't know if they're actually like gonna be like available items, but they might be. They're in the videos. I don't know.
Right. Well, think of all the vehicles. I'm assuming, right? If there's like Weta cars and there's like we're driving atom cars around and shooting each other. I'm just thinking, how do I get one of those? Maybe it's a thing you got to craft. You got to collect things and craft it or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're pretty far away from that in the timeline, but I mean, anything is possible.
Quarter two.
Quarter two, 2028. Flying ships, man.
But yeah, I don't know what would be better, to do 3 sacrifices of 5, and then you have some kind of liquidity. But I have to imagine this is the most expensive mint ever if you sacrifice 15, technically in FLUF. That's their most expensive ask. So I imagine there's some kind of reward for this blind fate. Or are we getting rough?
I mean,
well, I wouldn't call it blind faith, I guess. I think we've got some insight.
All right, you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean.
I think if you have the attitude that since it's the most expensive mint in the history of FLUF World, that means it's going to be super duper rewarded. I think that's rugging yourself. Not to say that it won't happen, but coming in with that attitude and that thought process is the type of thought process that people have, and then later they get let down because they had these expectations that weren't necessarily in line with reality. I do get that it would be the most expensive mint, but I think another way to look at it is that the regular kind of like the standard amulet that costs 1 seeker is not that, and this new amulet, it represents 15 of the other amulets in some shape or form. So it's really not the most expensive. It's just 15 of a normal price mint in one. It's easier to do. If you do want to do 15 individual, let's say someone has a lot of void seekers and they want to have a lot of amulet power, we'll call it, and that would be painful to press the button 100 times or whatever. So now you can only press it less, 100 divided by 15 with a remainder times. That's another way to look at it. Wait, what happened to pufferfish? Anyway, we have Thor now. Hi, Thor.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, so if we're talking about how are these amulets going to be valued with the rarity and everything, usually, there's a whole bunch of factors like the collectors, the people that want to get the most rare, the people that want the nicest looking thing. But this time it's a little bit different because Alex himself said on that podcast that they understand that this is 15 times the multiplier of a regular, and that will be taken into consideration. Now, it's usually just assumed that it's taken into consideration, but if you have to factor in an assumption that the team will take that into consideration, you gotta apply a multiplier to that. Okay, well that's only half as valuable because you're making an assumption. But if they're just coming out and saying it blatantly, then that kind of gives a little more confidence to say, oh, okay, all right, this will always be thought of and known to be worth 15 times more than whether it's 15 times more utility is what they're probably talking about. In terms of 15 times more open sea floor price, I mean, that's just complete speculation and not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about is it going to hold utility? So I think it will.
Yeah, it's very often that we see that the way that NFTs end up being priced by the market is such that floor NFTs hold more value than rare ones. So I'm not sure if that would be the case here or not, but let's say there was 15x the utility of the rare one. That doesn't mean it'll go for 15x the price. It would maybe go for less than that based on some of the history of NFTs. playing out.
But it's really interesting what Futureverse is doing. I mean, they're just coming out straight out and saying rarity is valuable. You know, a lot of us have been doing the floor game, and you know, others have been going for more aesthetics or, you know, seeing how that's going to affect the root drop, and then they're coming out and just saying that rarity is taken into consideration when your wallet is being evaluated for the root token drop. I mean, that changes up the game, and it's a good topic. You know, it's like some people went heavy after zombies or whatever it is they did, and now they've got to feel like, you know, that was a good move. You know, potentially that was a good move, or at least it's a little bit better than just, you know, it's a little bit of an excuse for paying more for some of those rare furs. And even though my strategy has always just been like floor, maybe a tiny bit more for aesthetically pleasing, it's kind of nice to see that some of the larger whales that have just dropped hundreds of ETH on zombies and hollows, silvers, are actually going to get a little more root. I think that's just.
We don't have any details on that though, do we? Just a general
it's the Futureverse
concept.
game. We have like 9 puzzle pieces to a map that needs 10, and so we have all these little bits and pieces from different tweets and what. But you know, your wallets will be evaluated. There's going to be different bonuses for, you know, length of hold and now we know that rarity will be included. But it's an interesting puzzle piece,
but not in any detail. I think, and I've talked about this before, but the general concept of my message is I don't think the team will announce the rate or the rules for how much of the root token one person gets versus the next person, because I think their lawyers would have advised them that is something that they should avoid doing, for the reason of to have a good fact towards not being considered a security as the root. I'm talking about the root token not being considered a security, which is of vital importance to them. They've spent incredible amounts of money and lawyer fees and hours on this specific issue, and I don't believe that they will ever tell us the information on how root goes to a specific person, and the only way that we'll be able to figure it out is to try to reverse engineer it ourselves as a community.
Yeah, that's where the fun's going to come in. All of the super active people in this voice chat are all just going to be crunching numbers for a week or two to figure all that out. It's going to be really neat.
Yeah, I mean, but for the type of people, and there are type of people that are like, no, I want to know because I want to know that it's fair. There's a big hindrance towards that, which is the SEC. And I think it is going to prohibit that from happening. The team could always decide to do that, but that puts everyone in the community at risk, because the more facts that go towards the root token not being a security, the safer this whole venture is for everybody participating in it from all sides. So I hope that everyone can be understanding if the team goes that path and just doesn't tell us anything about how the root allocation occurred. I just want to prepare this audience for that, because I think that is a very strong possibility. We're not going to be told. So, yeah. But I guess the general formula is rewarding participation and rewarding potentially length of hold, potentially rarity, potentially certain traits, because all traits count. A lot of other potential ways to build in rewards, but there's also the possibility that we won't ever know what they are. So It's a bit awkward.
That's a good thing.
That it's awkward?
Well, there was a slight pause, but it's a good thing came before you said the word awkward. But everything you just said is, yes, absolutely most likely. And it's all to protect all of us, so it's a good thing.
It's a good thing that the team is choosing the path forward that is most likely to not lead in the SEC spiking a hammer on all of us. There are negative sides to it. I think overall that path is the best for everybody, but there are certainly negative aspects. In a world where there was no securities law that created a problem for this type of transaction or network or token, however you want to call it, if there wasn't an issue with this, people, I think, would want to know the specific way that the root token was being distributed in order to believe that it's fair and to have some comfort that it's fair and to be able to like see what's going on instead of having to imagine it. But I just don't think that that's the world we live in right now. So I think we're gonna have to get used to and be comfortable with not being told the answers on this specific topic.
There was a discussion about fairness, and I think what comes down to is like, I don't think you can ever have a perfect concept of fairness when everyone's got a different opinion on that. But there was a discussion about the latest mint for the amulets and it being fair or not, based off like 15 seekers guaranteeing a gold amulet instead of it being a random thing. What's everyone's thoughts on that?
Well, I think Aaron said a bunch of times, and I guess it's been pretty established by him that since there's so many different mints and characters and other types of token opportunities, that every one of them uses something different. Some of them benefit the small guys, the small holders that have like one of everything or just one of something, and others are more beneficial to bigger players or medium players or players that do different things. In other words, each specific drop isn't going to be fair for everybody, but because each drop uses a different mechanic that can benefit different types of people, in aggregate over the course of a long period of time, it's hopefully more fair for everybody.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that it's meant to be different than just a typical randomized mint and stuff. I wouldn't necessarily call it unfair per se, but I guess that's a different conversation. And I would just say, we're not really trying to withhold any information from people, and we want to get people as much information as we can, but it's also important to realize that, we're all playing a game here, and there's consequences and things that may or may not be known at all times. And just, we would never hold information from people like just because we want to or anything like that. It's definitely always got reasons and things that, we can and cannot say. And we want to help people make informed decisions and all that. And it's, we're all playing the game here. So just want to touch on that. I do have to jump here in 4 minutes, but if I hop, just, continue on without me.
Can I just jump in for a second, Som?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, because I saw a bit of discussion around what Tybo was just mentioning, and I believe the concern was if these amulets are governance and have voting rights, then someone who only, is quite new to the ecosystem or is not a power player as such, and only has one or two seekers and only one to sacrifice, when it comes to the governance and voting regarding how that third kingdom moves forward, they're not going to have a huge say. Whereas someone who's sacrificing 250 seekers, and to be fair, we do know there are people who are sacrificing that many, So the larger wallets potentially could have a larger voice or opinion regarding voting. So I think what Tybo was saying there, look, it is valid because in what we say is we're all building the Futureverse, and it's important that we all have an equal say in regarding it. And it's important that potentially, should we say, mints of this nature don't look after the heavily stacked players as such. Just your thoughts on that. I saw it going around, and I thought it was a valid point.
Well, it's definitely like of people that live in democratic countries where it's one vote per person. You know, it's a bit of a foreign concept that some people have more votes than other people, but Web3 is certainly like that in a lot of ways, where a lot of protocols are based on ownership of a protocol, and it's also like that for, you know, like traditional equities like stocks. Like if you own 10% of a company, you get 10% of the voting rights. So there's instances of both of those different concepts. One of every person gets one vote versus people get to vote by the percentage of ownership of something. So they're both very familiar concepts to anyone that lives in the Western democratic world, or the Eastern democratic world, or just the democratic world in general. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to both of them, and yeah, it kind of is what it is, right?
I just see the concern there as being we're very much about a level playing field, and I love that, you know, that we have an equal say. And it's just regarding just that governance side of things. If all the large wallets have the large votes, then they can continually sway the decisions to be in their favor. And that's where the level playing field sort of has a bit of a slope to it. Just an opinion, just something that I'm sure the team are well across, and we'll be looking after everybody when they make those final decisions.
I mean, it's certainly true, but that's also the truth of traditional capitalistic business. So,
aren't we here to change that?
I mean, I think saying that everybody gets an equal say in everything, even in like a capitalistic setting, which is Web3, I think that's pushing it kind of closer to socialist. There are pros and cons. I don't mean to make it black and white or anything, but the concept that people with more ownership get more voting power is a very established model that maybe some people want to get rid of, but it does have a history of being a successful model in creating positive outcomes. It is not a perfect model, but to say one vote, one person, one vote in a business setting is not established as something that has led to prosperity in the history of the world.
I think there's like other caveats to like what is this governance controlling, and if say a small subset of people have the most voting rights, I just don't have a feeling that these voting rights are gonna only reward the people with the most amount. I think it could definitely sway the direction of where gods and goblins might go, but I don't see, at least for now, I don't see it being about having these votes so the people at the top can always benefit the most, and everyone else involved in the gods and goblins voting process are just going to miss out. And I also see, like, you know, everyone can burn a seeker, right? So if people come together, there's probably a lot more individuals than whales and number count. So I think the more people that get involved and burn a seeker to get an amulet, the better it is for the governance process. So I think that's more important than worrying about the whales necessarily. But then again, I don't know what these voting, like what the governance is going to entail, but it's just something to think about.
there's also the concept that has come up in a lot of scenarios with a lot of NFT projects, including FLUF World centric ones, that because people can have as many wallets as they want to have, and they can, like a whale could just split, put like 100 wallets of one amulet each, for example, if that was the direction, and then that would allow people to cheat the system versus a system where votes are by ownership doesn't allow cheating as easily, but it does allow a one person to have a large share of the voting power, but they have to have spent the capital to acquire those assets. It's, you know, it's quite capitalistic approach, but I think it is the agreed upon norm by Western capitalistic civilization. Not to say that it works in all cases or that it's great, but it is the norm that has been more successful than other models.
But why should somebody that doesn't have as much invested in the project have an equal voice? If somebody's invested $100,000 into shaping this metaverse in the direction that they think is the best, you know, why is somebody that comes in with $5 going to be able to have an equal voice? It's just like there's the fantasy of this beautiful ultimate democracy, then there's like what actually works.
Well, I guess. Go ahead, Simon.
I was just gonna say, like while like we are using actual money, and you know, the more money you spend, it kind of makes sense that you have more of a sway in what happens because you're more invested. It's like just in anything in life. When you're like building your own company, you're more invested in your own company. Like, should you just give equal pay to all your workers and they don't really care about the business as much as you do? It's like I think it's just like the reason why it works is because people that spend the most money are the most invested into what the product is. So that we just hope that like the governance and the voting is not about always just rewarding the people at the top, and the voting is more just about the general direction of the project instead of it just being about finding those pockets necessarily.
I think the argument for the other side of the coin, Thor, is that you want to incentivize lots of people without huge amounts of investment to invest their time, and you want those people to feel like they have some level of like their vote matters or what they're doing counts and is worth their time and effort and energy, for even if they don't have a lot of capital, you know, to acquire.
That's fine. That's fine. Then
I just don't know how
set up a
realistic
system that
it
does
is.
that. That's not the system that they've set up. It's not the system that has worked time and time again.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are phenomenal programs out there, but
it's kind of like the argument for like socialism versus capitalism or democracy.
Yeah.
But
you're right. That is actually where this is going.
The truth is, though, I think the world is trending towards finding that the best solutions are somewhere in the middle, and they're not easy to come up with because both systems have pros and cons. So the countries that I think are having more success in a lot of measurable ways are ones that provide a baseline of support, but then also are capitalistic. So it's kind of a compromise. And maybe there's some type of compromise to be had here. It's definitely true, and has been true in this ecosystem, that people that participate and do all the different things, even if it's at a small scale of one, get rewarded. More so than people that don't go about doing all the things. Activity has been rewarded, and we can surmise based on the team's comments that it will continue to be rewarded. That being said, you still get more rewarded for having more assets. I mean, that's just common sense, right? In a capitalistic environment. So I think it's very much an effort is being made to accommodate both sides, which is also what has been successful in like world geopolitics right now. So I don't know. I hope that these comments have shed some light on, you know, this complex issue about how to how to deal with both people that own a lot and own a little and participate, and also, you know, democracy versus socialism. It's a complex issue, and it's a political issue. But I don't want to venture too far. But I hope my comments were helpful to somebody, I guess.
Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly say, like, if you do only have one or two seekers, band together with others with the bronze amulet, make a guild, like make it fun, turn it into like something that you can all participate in, and try and sway the decision of gods and goblins. Like, don't let the whales just have their way. Like, I think it's about like working together. If you are in that position, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I have less votes, poor me. No, more like, well, let's try and work together and use many people as our advantage, you know? But yeah, just a thought.
If nobody sacrificed any seekers at all, it wouldn't be a lot of fun. So I think maybe that's why, like, Alex and Aaron were suspiciously like pro-goblin. I don't know if they were like putting that on for a show just to like get us all hyped up, or like, you know, are they sick of looking at rabbits? Like, I want to look at goblins for a while. You know, nothing against the fluff. Maybe they're sick of rendering fur or something. I don't know. But like, they were extremely pro-goblin. And then, okay, here's who's on the other side. These two guys from Seekers, like going against the founders of the team. It wasn't really like a even debate. I don't know what to take away from that. What are you guys' thoughts?
Will and Dorian did a pretty good job of holding their own, I thought. I thought they put that show together really well too. I really enjoyed it. But I mean, when we're talking about governance, is it just going to be the gods and goblins side of the equation we're governing with these amulets, or are we talking about the third kingdom? And is there governance coming for the FLUF side as well to balance things out? So, I mean, it's way too early to know any of these things. I'm sure these guys are balancing it all the best they can. But yeah, I liked Will and Dorian, the way they held their own in that last FLUF World AMA. It was pretty good.
The way I see it, and I'm not planning to go for goblins, despite your comments, Pufferfish, about the main founders of the team being on the goblin side. Here's how I see it. We're talking about a decentralized communications network that is powering this ecosystem, but hopefully it can span to other ecosystems or other networks. It's multi-chain. It doesn't really have a presence yet and hasn't seen adoption, but surely if Futureverse were to succeed, it would get adoption from that, and then could even have further adoption than that. On the other side, you have a protocol that burns other like rug NFTs for characters that are green generally and can run around a 3D game world that we don't know exactly what they can do, when they will be able to do it. I don't know. I personally am more interested in the decentralized communications network than the other thing, but that doesn't mean it will be more valuable, in terms of the market valuing it. But that's just, I don't know, my take.
One of the most genius breakthrough things, I've never seen another project do that. Maybe somebody else did before them, but this is just an amazing marketing move. You have a whole bunch of people that have extremely negative emotions about a rugged NFT, and you're going to take that person and you're going to replace all that negativity with something positive. And you're just, the emotional flip that somebody's going to have is just going to make them just overwhelmed with gratitude
Maybe.
towards this brand new project.
Maybe. That's the
filled
idea.
with gratitude, Max.
That's
Filled
the
with
idea.
gratitude.
That's the idea, and I think it's a good idea. But because we've never seen this type of mechanic, and we also don't have a great understanding for the utility of like what people are going to be able to do with goblins and when, or if it's just another, vehicle for selling, to like somebody can easily see an opportunity. Like I'm sure people will if once this gets working, if NFTs are the way they are currently, people far and wide will hear about this rugged NFT that you can transfer it for something of value, but it might mean to most of those people, oh, I can get some free money out of this. Then a portion of them will stay and learn more about it. And it's just a matter of how that goes, right? But if there is a lot for goblins to do and it's a fun experience and the network is built out and there's some type of game world experience or something that people like and is enjoyable, easy to use, the root network's going well and gaining popularity, you can see it really working out. But we haven't seen any of these things in motion yet, so it's still speculative. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think though, just the marketing aspect, because everyone in FLUF Discord is a amateur marketing expert. Bringing people in, you're gonna be like, hey man, remember those fill in the blank NFT? Like now we can go turn it into something, and they'll check it out like for a little bit of gas. Now we have a new person in the Futureverse, and it's not like not the same as trying to bring someone from FIFA. This is already an NFT collector. So I think that's a real amazing opportunity. I don't know if that was like, just a convenience, symptom or like the main goal, but like
I think it's the main goal.
A lot of people.
Do you think we'll see FLUF World people going over and sweeping the floors of these projects once they're announced? They say that this project is going to be honoured to be burnt. Do you think a lot of attention is going to be like, why is this project going up in value? Because they're sweeping the floor for goblins?
That's a weird side effect if that happens.
Yes and no. I think what I was more thinking was like, let's find out what was like one of the most promising projects that ended up failing miserably, so we can really like capture an audience in the NFT community that really like believed in certain projects that just ended up rugging or failing and closing shop. That way, like we can grab their attention and it's somewhat more of a well-known NFT project, because there's so many out there, and if we're smart about it, we can really like make more noise if we choose the right ones.
I got something. Okay, so art gobblers, right? Art gobblers you can sell for 1 ETH, but people bought it for like 13 Ether, right? Is that a rug? Like, what do we consider a rug? To me, I was trying to measure the offers. Is there exit liquidity on this project? To me, I think is an important factor.
Well, the thing is, if I guess the decision is made that, let's say art gobblers are still selling for an Ethereum when the decision is made, right? And like people would have to get a lot of this token to get a lot of goblins to even consider burning something that's worth an Ethereum, right? I don't see that as something that would be realistic, at least in the beginning.
Because goblins are in like an inflationary supply, so like I think logically it has to be something under 0.1. But I could see some outliers,
right?
I could see some outliers, but generally speaking, anything under 0.1 would be more ideal for the sake of like people considering wanting to participate, and also people that are just having it in their wallet and don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Oh, there has to be an established market value of this token, right? that people will receive in exchange for burning their assets, and it's got to be significant enough to get people to come to the conclusion that they should do this.
Mike,
Can you
check
guys
on
hear me
Jerry.
okay?
Mike, check.
Hello,
Mike, check,
hello.
Jerry.
Jerry,
How's it all going?
Hi, everybody.
Professor Jerry.
I had a few thoughts on the sacrifice and also the DAO conversation you guys were having earlier on governance. I'm thinking like when somebody does sacrifice for some junk, I think at the end of it, they'll also get maybe one of these red packets as well to help onboard them into the ecosystem. So I don't think it's just going to be for a goblin. And clearly we're trying to recruit new people. So I don't see them going after high value or even, relatively low value NFT collections, because you don't want to disenfranchise an actual community that might not be just doing so well. You want to target stuff that has pretty much gone to zero and sort of salvage it for people. And I also don't see people sweeping these things, because I think the Futureverse team, they're smart enough to know when we're trying to game the system, given that you've got all the decentralized identity tech. And I think that's also going to play into the governance side of things, where you've got these 7 DAOs in Gods and Goblins or the Third Kingdom, however it sort of plays out. I think those DAOs are literally just to teach people how DAOs and governance works. I think that's the play to learn element. And we might be getting a bit ahead of ourselves if we're thinking there's actually a lot of economic value being swayed by these particular DAOs. The end game is the actual root protocol and its DAO. That's the one where all the the economic value is going to accrue, and then you do start to have issues with whales and governance capture. But I have a feeling like with these other DAOs that are based at the game level, there's probably not much economic value there, and it's literally an onboarding exercise to teach people about governance. Maybe you have governance councils where someone like Mo might actually be up there on the council representing a particular community, and it's based on engagement rather than the assets that you hold. So I just wanted to mention that I think this is all a big ploy to onboard people into the ecosystem.
Yeah, whether it's a red packet or similar to like the TNL bridging over and being rewarded. Say like you burn these NFTs for junk and then you claim a goblin, but like they're incentivized to bridge over to root once that happens. That way, you got people participating and getting onto the root network and learning more about it. So I definitely see that this is like a weird reverse Trojan horse. Like everyone's already got their dead NFTs in their wallet. Let's turn that into something salvageable and valuable to some regard, and then get them aware of the root network. And I think it's like, if we're talking about when marketing, I think this is one of the most genius plays that Aaron has come up with when it comes to a marketing strategy for Web3. And I'm excited to see it develop.
I think in general, this large project that is the Futureverse is not trying to be niche at all. It's trying to be very large in scale with millions of users. I don't know how far away that is, but I think there are a lot of different ways that they're trying to onboard users. Like this way is totally different and targeting something like a user that's totally different than like the FIFA World Cup game, for example. And then there's other audiences that they're going to try to attract using other methods, such as the developer communities that use Chainlink and are familiar with that type of coding and network, and also attracting the people from XRP, for example, or Ripple users. So, and we'll see a lot of different other groups that are targeted through different means. So this is one that's clearly aimed at the Web3 NFT crowd.
Yeah, I think once you get people across and bridged across to root, that's the big hurdle. If you get them across, there's going to be a lot of retention tactics and further incentivization, extra, hoops to jump through to claim your tokens, hopefully have a bit of fun in the meantime and see the value prop of the tech. And once you've done that, you're much more likely to retain people and actually convert them into, community members, and then start bringing other people across.
Yep. And I also think that once you have a platform that's usable and has good user experience, that is the time to execute those plans. It's not as great of an idea to try to start executing when you just have a Discord and like a community Twitter Spaces and some tweets and stuff and some like JPEGs and MP4s on like OpenSea. You know, like you need to have a little bit more substance where somebody can get lost in it or like want to actually do it, as opposed to like talk about the theory about it.
Yeah, I guess just seeing all these meta spaces like we saw with the ATOM League overnight, having these virtual environments that people might be able to start using their goblins in on day one, that's a lot more tangible than just a profile picture, which is the world they're probably coming from.
Yep.
There's also a distribution side to this as well. I mean, we need liquidity in the root network. We need to do things that actually prove we're working to be able to receive these root tokens. So that's the proof has to be there. So by having these communities do work, by bridging over to the root network, gets us distributing that root token, because how it's distributed is the most important part of keeping it from being a security.
Right. That is another good point. Yeah, it seems like the team is doing a pretty good job from my perspective in terms of coming up with ideas that work both within the bounds of the SEC rules and all kinds of legal rules from agencies across the world, versus like doing something that will be novel and worthwhile and valuable to the world. Pretty good balance from my perspective, but of course we haven't seen it in action yet, so time will tell. Well, usually we end this spaces within 2 hours after we started, and somehow we're already pretty much there. So does anyone want a final word? Pufferfish, a final word from you?
I'll chuck in a final word. Jerry, thank you for coming up. You brought so much to the conversation right there at the end. So in the future, brother, just jump up earlier because we love you up here. All right, thank you.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking forward to the sacrifice and Mo Meta's beautiful voice. It's so soothing.
Stop it.
It's true, though.
I hope there's a commercial for the junk. Are you tired of your junk in your NFT collection just wasting space? Well, have I got the burn for you? You know, something like that. I hope they do something interesting to grab people's
do something
attention.
like that, I hope I can get the Pufferfish 15 to use at checkout to get more junk for burning my NFT junks. Okay, so thanks to everybody that came and listened and participated. Thanks for everyone that's going to listen to it on replay, which will be available on my Twitter just as soon as we end this. Big thank you to our guest, Kelly, from the animation department. That was a really, really cool conversation that we had with her, and we really appreciate her coming on the show. That was really one of the best ones we've had, I think, in my opinion.
This is a good space. This has been a really good space. Good work.
Yes, so thanks to everybody, and we'll be back again next week with another, hopefully, fun show. No outro music today, so I'm ending it now. So emojis, and see you next week.
Get the music.
Okay, I don't like this music. Bye, everyone.
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!